Hello everyone, Josh here with Excess Games, bringing you guys another Awaken Cast era video. And today we're going to be going over 3 teams that you absolutely should avoid trying to build early game, maybe even mid game, if you are a free-to-play player or a casual spender. Whales, you could probably more or less get around this and build these teams if you like, but they're still going to take quite a bit of time because they take a lot of investment, not only by gear, but skill level ups, ascensions, etc, etc. So we're going to be going over counterattack teams, bleed teams, and of course, poison teams. Now, bleed we're going to talk about first because it's kind of like the new toy of the month, right? Because we got a new awesome unit that just came out that really helps the bleed teams out. And that is, of course, Marion Shadow Blood. Now, she is a bleed type unit. She is dark. She is an epic. So she's not going to be super easy to pull. You are going to need to pull her 3 times. Or at least somehow get her to Ascension 2 to make full use of her trait. Now, keep in mind, not all units in the games actually need their traits skilled up to be useful. Okay? But in this case, this is going to be a unit that you're really going to want to pull 2 copies additional of, or at least get her trait unlocked somehow, because it goes from 30% chance to proc to 50. Trigger chance scales with this character's speed. Now, I have tested this thoroughly. As you can see, I've already got her up to level 60. I got her over, right now she's like over 160 speed, but I've had her up to 200 to 250 when you proc her skill 2, and it works. I was hitting that, the trigger chance on her joint attack around 60 to 70% chance, even without any dupes in her, and I did pull an additional dupe today on my free daily single summon, which is funny, but that doesn't really change too much because she needs an additional dupe to get that 50% at base. Now, why is that important? Why can't you just run speed, you ask? Well, if you just run her with speed, you're going to be sacrificing a lot of her DPS. Now, she's only an A attack, so she's not going to be some big powerhouse DPS right out of the gate. You're going to have to glyph her up, which I have not been able to do yet. I have no resources. I'm sure a lot of you know the struggles of that already. And you're going to have to give her really strong gear. It's going to have to be attack, crit rate, crit damage. You know, the usual DPS stats to try and get that damage output as high as possible, because her skill 3, her ultimate, does a lot of damage depending on how many bleeds you have on each target. So you're going to need to run her alongside her best friend, Scarlet. We're going to talk about Scarlet in a moment. But why is this unit and this team in particular very expensive to build? Well, they're very gear oriented. They want tons of gear. They are gear hungry. They want lots of attack. They want lots of speed. Okay? That's what this unit wants. She wants to go fast so she can proc her trait a lot, but she also wants a lot of attack so her bleeds do some kind of damage, and her ultimate does a lot of damage so she can completely top herself back up, because her ultimate has a built-in 50% lifesteal. So, she's expensive. And not to mention, in that particular team, you're going to want all your bleed units to be on the curse set. And keep the curse set in mind, because we're going to be talking a lot about the curse set in today's video, because the curse set is going to be probably one of the best endgame gear sets in the game, because it has a 50% chance to proc, which allows you to use a skill 1 again, essentially. So, it's a very strong set to have in a counterattack set. Or, I'm sorry, in a counterattack team, in a bleed team, in a poison team. All these teams are going to be utilizing their skill 1s more than anything else. So that's what we're going to want to have. So, you're going to want to get her up to trait 2, or I'm sorry, get her up to awakened enough to get her trait unlocked, which is second awakening. They're going to need 2 dupes into her. And then you're going to need her with high attack and high speed. Now, you could kind of cut back a little bit on speed and go more on attack if you'd like. If you don't, mind the trigger chance being in the 70-80 percentile range, and you don't mind it being around 50-60% with a little bit lower speed. If that's fine for you, and you're running a unit like William, which is going to be useful in all 3 of these teams, then you might be able to get away with just going full into DPS with just minimum, amounts of speed. Because her base speed is not too bad. She is an A speed with glyphs. She's going to be over 120, 130 easily, no problem. So, keep that in mind. Plus, her skill 2 raises her own speed by 50. If you could run her with a Windstrex if you'd like. I don't think you'd want to run her with a Windstrex, though, because that kind of doesn't fit the team. But her own skill 2 gives her that 50 speed. So, if you can get her around 130, that'll push her up to 180. And then that's pretty decent speed for her. With the 50% already, at base to proc, and then the 180 speed, which would push it up a little bit more. That's not too bad. So you could probably get away with less speed, more attack on her, but again, you're still going to need that trait. You're going to need that. So that's going to be 2 dupes minimum. Okay? And you're going to have to 6-star her because she needs to get her attack as high as possible because that's what bleed is based off of. The same situation with her partner. Now, Scarlet is even more expensive to build. She's going to be, hopefully, for a lot of you, easier to pull because she's not a light or dark epic. She's just a fire epic. However, the way her trait works, you need 5 dupes. And this is going to be in my video that I'm going to be making either later today or tomorrow, where I'm going to be talking about things that need to be fixed before global release. And one of those is, units should not need 5 dupes for their trait, while other units only need 2. That's just weird to me. It doesn't make any sense. It's illogical. It's irresponsible. And it's just too dang expensive. Like, Corrupt Aurak is a legendary. You expect people to get him pulled 6 times? No way. At 0.1% pull rate, just to pull a light and dark unit at legendary? No way. I mean, you could use all your dupes, your free dupe things that you get from event stuff and feed into them, but my goodness, that's all of your resources gone. So, hopefully they change that. But enough of that little mini rant. She could work without her trait being ascended if it wasn't for the fact that all enemies take 50% more damage from bleeding. You absolutely need that. That is massive. Take 50% more damage from bleeds. You have to have that to make this bleed team work at its full capability. So right as it stands right now, they might change this for release and you only need 2 copies, which would be so much better. But as of right now, you need 5 copies of Scarlet. So she's going to be very expensive to build. Now her stat distribution is very good for a DPS. She has A attack and A crit rate, and her speed's already an A as well, so she's not going to be a slow slouch unit. Very, very nice. And with the way her wolf works, anytime you hit a target that's bleeding, no matter who it's on your team that's attacking, her wolf's going to attack. And her wolf has a 50% chance of applying its own bleed, which is very, very nice. Which you can see here, the wolf deals 50% damage to the target with a 50% chance to apply bleeding. Now, with testing, it seems like the wolf is kind of scaling off of Scarlet. So that's kind of nice, in a way. I was afraid that the wolf might have like its own scaling, but doing a lot of testing, it really seems like the wolf is kind of scaling off of Scarlet. So that's good. So you build your Scarlet, you know, super amount of attack, crit, and crit damage. Build her as a pure DPS, obviously, because that's what she wants to be. And the higher her attack, the better she's going to do bleeds. And she will spam bleeds, especially with her ult here. Deals 105% damage to an enemy in 3 strikes, which have 100%, 50%, and 30% chance to apply bleeding for 2 turns. Summons 1 wolf if no wolves are present. Very, very good. So she's going to be stacking a lot of bleeds. If you run her again with William, which William's going to be ran in all 3 teams we're talking about today. That counterattack, bleed. Skill 1, bleed. Wolf can bleed. You got to bleed. All your other attacks from your other allies are going to be attacking. Possible wolf, bleed. Possible wolf, bleed. Possible wolf, bleed. You get the idea, guys. Lots of bleeding. And then you add in Marion Shadow Blood. You got more bleeds because when she attacks, she also can bleed on her skill 1 at a 50% clip. And again, there's the wolf tagging right along again to apply more bleeds. So, it's going to be bleeding chaos out there. And it's going to be beautiful. But this team is going to be very expensive to build. You're going to need lots of dudes. You're going to need lots of gear investment. And it's not going to be something you're going to get done easily. And you're also going to have to make your Scarlet 6-star as well, because she relies on that attack being as high as possible. Especially considering your Scarlet's going to be the biggest amount of bleeder, or the biggest bleeder rather, out there on the field. Because as much as Marion is good as a unit, she's not going to be your biggest bleed unit. Scarlet's going to be the bleed leader. Kind of like how Gangela, which we'll talk about later, is going to be the poison leader. So, Scarlet, going to be expensive to build. You're going to need 5 dupes as it stands right now. That could change, hopefully, which would make the team a little bit less expensive. You're going to need the Marion The Dark Marion with 2 dupes in her as well, so you can get that joint attack to go off as much as possible, so she can keep hopefully applying her own bleeds and doing additional damage. She's also going to be scaling off of bleeds with her ult, so you want to save up her ult for a couple turns and then just go BAM! Go plow! Go in there and just do what you want to do and do some damage, you know what I'm saying? So, Mary and Scarlet, the best of friends, the best of partners, the best tag team in this federation. You gotta give it to them. So that bleed team is awesome, but it's going to be pricey. Now let's move over to a slightly less expensive team. And the reason why I say it's less expensive is because it's a little bit more manageable. And with rerolling, the power of rerolling, you could do it, but there's going to be a caveat to that. There's going to be an asterisk next to this. So we're going to be talking about the Poison team. Now, I don't have all the units anymore for the Poison team because I've already tested it. So I've already fed those units into making some other units 6 stars and 5 stars. So we're going to kind of ignore that for now. And we're going to move on over to the index. Now, one of these days, your boy Josh is going to memorize all these units in this index. But it ain't going to be today. So, let's just go through here and quickly find the units I need to discuss with you guys and gals out there. And then we'll go from there. Okay, there's nothing in here that we need. Moving on, and here we go. All right. Oh, by the way, just a little, quick tip. If you are building the bleed team and you're looking for a big DPS, particularly for like boss fights, Elmar is a good shout out. S attack, so he's going to hit very hard, and if you check out his ult, deals 120% damage to an enemy and detonates all of their bleeding effects. But again, you're going to be detonate them, but he will do a ton of damage in this team. If you look at his ult, and then you look at his skill 1, has a 30% chance, so he doesn't really fit. And then you can see their skill 2. So there you go. If you want a big boy DPS to also be in the fray with your bleed team, you can also look into getting a Helmar as well. Just a quick shout out. He's not needed though. That's why I didn't really mention him or go too much into him. But he is a nice DPS to add to that team. But the core of that team, again, is the Dark Marion and of course Scarlet. But now on to the Poison team. So, Gangello. This is basically the Poison team leader. Kind of like how Scarlet is the bleed team leader, Gangello is the Poison team leader. Because Gangello is going to be dropping that sweet 100% additional damage on poison when you max out his trait. Now, thankfully, this is not a legendary that needs 5 dupes. He only needs 2. If you reroll for Gangello, who is in the rookie summons, thankfully, you only got to get 2 more copies. And through the Game Pass and other various events in the game, it's kind of cheap to get him to a 2-star Awaken. So you could theoretically get his Awaken to get the trait to fully ascended, and you're good to go. And he's got S health, A defense, so you're going to be able to make him a super tank. And what's cheap about the Poison team compared to the Bleed team is everyone in the Poison team is going to be built the same way, and it's going to be very easy. You don't need speed. All you need is HP and defense. A little bit of agility and resistance never hurts, especially if you want to run them in like an arena team on defense if you'd like. I don't really consider Poison being very good right now. Maybe if we get a different Poison unit that does really strong AoE damage, perhaps. But as of right now, I wouldn't really run it in arena. But it's possible because the whole team's going to be a tank team. So yeah, that's going to be your Gangello. He also has other skills, of course, that apply poison, like his skill 1. Deals 60% damage to an enemy and applies poison for 2 turns. It's unconditional, so with a little bit of focus, which might be another stat you might want to look forward to in a team like this, it helps. A little bit of focus does help apply in case there is a lot of resistance in, in content. But for the most part, I haven't really had the problem with resistance in a lot of the PvE content. Mostly only arena, because when you max out your glyphs and you throw a little bit of resistance on gear, you can get your resistance up pretty high. So in arena, this might be an issue, but in PvE so far, from what I can tell, hasn't really been a big deal. But of course, that could change. His skill 2 as well, and then of course his skill 3. So the dude is the Poison leader. You want to definitely run him. He has to be in the Poison team. If you don't got Gangello and he's not a 2-star Awaken, don't even bother touching the Poison team. Just don't do it. It's pointless. You need this guy. He's the engine. Kind of like Scarlet. Alright. And we've already talked about Raven in the previous video. Again, she's going to be another unit that you can utilize for poison. She has an 80% chance to apply poison on her first skill. Now, granted, she has low stats, C health, and C defense. You're going to have to put a lot of work into her gear if you want to utilize Raven. She's another unit, kind of like Helmar, that could be in there and either be a good utility or do a bunch of DPS with the way her ult's designed. But she's not needed. I'm just giving her a shout because she's a cool character and she's one of my favorite elite and one of the best elites in the game, as I said in my previous video. But I just wanted to give her a little shout out there. Here we go. So this is the other big core component to the poison team. You need Santis. You have to have Santis or this just doesn't work. So Santis has got an A health, B defense, so she's not super squishy, but she's not super tanky either like Gangello, obviously. But with having an A health and a B defense, you can still get her up pretty good. Her skill 1 has a 50% chance to apply a poison, so it's a little bit less. Kind of like Marion in regards where hers is 50% to land a bleed. Santis is 50% to land a poison, but it's on her skill 1, and that's important because remember, these three teams are going to be heavily revolving around skill 1s. For skill 2, which is not worded correctly, it actually duplicates the poisons even on a single target. So a boss fight, you could still duplicate those poisons, which is why she's so good. If this did not work on a boss, she would lose a lot of value here, but it does work on a boss. I don't know if that's intentional or a bug. I'm assuming it's intentional, otherwise the poison team would just fall off a cliff. And then the bleed team would reign supreme in the dot damage dealing teams right now, since Ignites just kind of don't really have much going on outside of Asrina. Unfortunately, hopefully that changes at release. But yes, you can just duplicate a bunch of poisons on her skill 2 on a boss and go to town. Skill 3 deals 100% damage to all enemies and applies poison for 2 turns. Now here's the important part. Prolongs the duration of all poison effects on enemies by 1 turn. That's huge, because now you can make those poison ticks stick. And poison right now does 3% max HP damage of the enemy. With Gangello, that goes up to 6% per tick. If you have 10 ticks of poison, for example, that is 60% of the health bar gone. Like that. The poison team is disgusting. It's going to need a lot of high-end gear, though. And it also has the same problem that the other 2 teams have. You're going to need that cursed gear set, which you can farm from Ash, which is a lot harder to farm at, like, 9+ than Tulpa. Okay? So, like I said, this is going to be teams that you're going to be building from mid to end game opposed to early to mid game, because they're very expensive, they're hard to build, they need a lot of gear. And you're going to need a lot of components to that team to make it function the way you need to make it worth the investment. So I hope you guys and gals out there are learning a lot of stuff about these teams right now. I'm not saying these teams are bad. These teams are phenomenal. These teams are just amazing. But to make them work, to make it an investment worth your while as a free-to-play or a casual spender, you have to take all this information into account when building these teams. They're going to be long-term builds, not short-term builds. Thus, they're going to need a lot more work. Okay. Excuse me. Alright. Now, going back through here, we're going to start talking a little bit about, now, the counterattack team. And what's really funny is Holy Light Empire has most of the team in it. So you have our boy William. He's going to be setting up the counterattacks for your team to pop skill 1s off. He's going to be allowing you to do a lot of joint attacks with himself, which is great. And he also adds a defensive buff and an AoE defensive down into his kit as well. This dude is really good. Not to mention, and this is why William is going to be utilized in pretty much all 3 of these teams. The basic abilities of all team members deals 80% more damage. The basic ability is your skill 1. The William is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Another unit for the counterattack team, our boy Thomas, who is a beast. This dude is a Tulpa killer. He's going to be great in PvP. He's going to be great really in any mode in the game outside of, like, if he has a type disadvantage, that's going to just nuke him. Because he's going to counterattack with high damage. He's got an S grade in attack. He's an epic. He's a fire, so he's not going to be as hard to pull as like some of the dark and light units, obviously. He's got an A in crit rate as well, so he's very, very good. And he's not too squishy because all of his HP and defense are both B. So it's not too bad. Now, let's look at his trait. When health is above 50%, attacks have a 30% chance to apply a stun for 1 turn. When health is below 50%, attacks deal bonus damage equal to 5% of the enemy's max health. So this guy's trait allows you to hit very, very hard. Even without getting his trait up, he's still doing 3% of max HP and 15% chance to stun. And this is going to be another unit you're going to want to have on Curse Set. Like I said, Curse Set is a set that is going to be utilized so much at end game. It's going to be hard to get the right gear. Well, I should say the right stats on that gear, because that gear's going to be hard to farm, but it's going to be one of the better gear sets available at end game, especially in these 3 particular teams. Skill 1. 100% damage to an enemy with a 50% chance to remove 1 positive effect. So, it's a nice 100%. Again, with William, it's going to be even higher. It's going to be basically 180, which is crazy on a skill 1. But the stripping buffs on it is also very, very nice. Now, that's not going to work in all situations, but having a nice strip on it is not bad. You know, why not? Skill 2. Now, this is the meat and potatoes of kind of his kit here. When an enemy attacks an ally, there is a 50% chance to perform a counterattack that deals 100% damage. So again, he's going to be counterattacking all kinds of times, especially if you're running him with a William. That's already allowing you to do a counterattack with his own skill on top of the joint attacks that he's doing as well. So your boy Tom is going to be doing some damage. And then his skill 3. Now he applies the big boy defense down, the one that gives you 50%, not 30, but 50 to an enemy for 2 turns, and then deals 200% damage. And it's only a 4-turn cooldown. Again, he's going to hit very, very hard. He's got the big boy defense down. He's got an S-grade attack. He's going to be counterattacking all the time. And with William, his counterattacks and his first skill that you're going to be using are going to be doing a ton of damage. So, amazing. And now we have Jacob. Jacob is a very popular character since last beta, and he's still quite popular in this beta. This guy has the ability to stack up a lot of attacks and then utilize them all in one go, which is very, very crazy. He only has an A attack, but you're probably going to be glad he only has an A, because if he has an S, he would be doing some crazy things and be semi-borderline broken. So he has a base attack of 1287, which is not too bad, because considering that the S-grade attack for Thomas is 1338, he's up there in the higher echelon of A. He's like borderline pushing to S-grade on his attack already. He's got an A in crit rate as well, which is very, very nice. He's not super squishy because his health is B. He is a bit on the weaker end on his defense, though, so he could take a little bit of a hit. But let's go over some of his skills real quick. So, permanently grants invisible permanent. So basically, stealth. You're hitting this guy with an AoE or you're not hitting him. Skill 1, he has intrigue. This is what you can stack up. It gets pretty crazy too. So we're not going to go into how many stacks he actually goes up to. I think he can lower as low as like 200 or 300 defense. Just off the top of my head, I might be a little bit miscalculated right there, but it's somewhere around he minuses 200-300 defense, which is not a lot on bosses, but in PvP and in PvE scenarios like story and trial and tower, that's a lot of defense decrease. It may not sound like much, but it is. It's quite a bit. He deals 60% damage to an enemy with a 30% chance to apply intrigue, which that chance, of course, goes up to 100% because he gains 40 and 30. So he's always going to get the intrigue off with a max 20 stacks, which, of course, that goes up as well because at level 4 and 7, the effect increases. So the dude is crazy. His special randomly selects one ally at the start of every round. Every time that ally uses a basic ability, this character launches a joint attack with their own basic skill. So what does that mean? You're running with William, who's always doing joint attacks and counter-attacking because of his skill. You're going to be running with Thomas, who also likes to counter-attack and will joint attack with William and because of the skill. It's crazy. Okay, guys? It's absolutely crazy. So that's going to be going off like all the time. And then his ultimate, his Bloodlust, as I said, expends all rage to enter a state of madness. Grants 1 bonus turn for every 1 rage spent. Exits the madness state after all bonus turns are used up. Max rage plus 50%. This is where you can kind of, you know, be a little bit, I guess you could say you can exploit him in a way, and you can attack with him multiple times. You could stack him up to do a lot of attacks in a row. Which all, by the way, just further allows you to be the crazy counterattack team that you're trying to build. Because your whole purpose of the counterattack team is to just attack with your skill 1 over and over and over and over again. To my Canadian fans out there. So, there you guys go. It's crazy. And those are the 3 core elements of that team. The 3 core components, I should say. 2 fire, 1 water. And then that 4th unit, you could slot in a lot of different things. If you're crazy, or I shouldn't say crazy, if you're super lucky and you get this badass, okay, this Evelyn First Dawn, most busted character right now as it stands in this game, unless something changes between now and release, you're going to be able to do this crazy shenanigans in this team. Deals 80% damage to all enemies and grants 1 bonus turn to all allies at the start of their turn. Because why not? Why not attack a million times in a row and your opponent just sit there with their thumb up their butt going, oh well? Because that's crazy. So guys, again, these teams are all very hard to build. They're all very pricey in their own ways. They're all going to need the end game gear, which is curse set to function to their utmost potential. You could make budget versions of these teams, but they're not going to work like you may want them to, so it may not be worth the investment, but they're all very solid teams. They're all going to be straight up for mid to end game content, and I hope you guys all enjoyed this breakdown. My voice is about to go. I try not to stutter or step on my words too much, but I probably did. But, you know, we don't do scripts around here. We just go all in raw. But I hope you guys do enjoy the breakdowns. Hope you guys like you know, like what I did with the video. I just didn't want you guys to go in at release and try to build these teams that you're going to be hearing people say, oh man, the Poison team is crazy, the Bleed team is crazy, the Counter team, that team is nuts. I just don't want you guys as a free-to-play and a casual to go in thinking you're going to build these teams day 1, week 1, and be able to use them at their utmost potential when you're not going to be able to. I just don't want you guys to get your hopes up and be let down like that. I want you to use your resources smart. Okay, resource management is key in a gacha game. I don't even care if they give us double the resources we have now. You still want to be very smart with your resources and how you use them and who you invest into. So with that said, hope you guys all enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, check notifications, and join us in the Discord in the description below. As always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at XSPlays, all one word. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, as always, peace.